I now call upon our guest of honor, Shri Amitabh Kant. As India's G20 Sherpa, Shri Amitabh Kant is a governance reformer and public policy change agent for India. As a member of the Group of 20 G20 Forum, he has driven key reforms and initiatives during his tenure as the Chief Executive Officer of the NITI Aayog and Secretary of the Departmental for Industrial Policy and Promotion. He also has been a key driver of transformational national initiatives such as Startup India, Make in India, Incredible India, Kerala God's Own Country, and the Aspirational Districts program, which have repositioned India and Kerala on the global stage. As the CEO of NITI Aayog, he has driven a vast range of national level developmental and policy initiatives which catalyze India's social and economic development. Oh, okay. All right. He's also written books and won a number of awards. Over to you.
I think the distinguished authors, Dr. Joseph Chalil, Professor Nalapad, and Mr. Pradeep Kapoor, the publisher, Mr. Nair, General UK Sharma, Mr. Supreet Singh, many distinguished people in the audience, Mrs. Lakshmi Puri, who's a very distinguished diplomat and a very distinguished writer, Professor Ruby Pavankar, our National Maritime Coordinator, Admiral Ashok Kumar, Mr. Alphonse, a former minister, many ambassadors who are here, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first compliment the publisher, the Konark publisher, and the very distinguished authors, whom I know very well. They have written an outstanding book, India Beyond the Pandemic, a Sustainable Path Towards Global Quality Healthcare. This pandemic was a once in a lifetime pandemic. And normally when pandemics of this nature happen, I think the world is confronted with several challenges. Challenges of healthcare, challenges of slowdown of growth, challenges of huge implications on the population. And I think more than anything else, the challenges of handling the pandemic itself. And I think I was then the CEO of NITI Aayog, and I was center stage on many of these issues. I was chairing one of the empowered groups which was dealing with this issue of handling the crisis from a perspective of private sector, international partners, challenges of with all the civil society organizations. And let me say, first of all, that this pandemic in a vast and large country of this nature, which is bigger than 25 countries of Europe put together, has been handled in a very, very unique manner. First of all, the fact that we were able to vaccinate 2.2 billion people, do 2.2 billion vaccinations for our population, which was totally digital, which was paperless, cashless, and was totally digital, has not happened anywhere else in the world. I think this has been a remarkable feat. We were at one stage doing vaccination of 25 million per day. And that is like doing a vaccination for the whole population of Australia in one single day. That was the size and scale of what India achieved. And the fact is that this was all being done digitally on the TheUNN app. And therefore, the fact that we had leveraged technology in a very big way, both the Aarogya Setu app and the TheUNN app were huge technological leapfrogging in many ways. Not merely leapfrogging, they were pole vaulting. And the fact that India was the only country which had done this digitally everywhere, across Europe, across America, it was all paperwork. India was the only country which had done this technologically in a digital manner. I think the second key aspect was that there were very few countries which were confronted with such a deadly second phase of that attack. Those of us who were here would recall that it was a very, very deadly second phase of the attack. And despite that, I think the country was able to keep down the lockdown period to a very minimal period. And therefore, we could revive our economy much quickly, much faster. And this was possible because the Prime Minister took the country into confidence, took the states into confidence, and it was a great effort of leadership, but it was also a great effort of cooperative federalism. I think that was the second great aspect of India's G20 handling, that it was cooperative federalism at its best during that period. Thirdly, I think there was a lot of innovation all through, from the not merely the fact that we were able to produce vaccine to such a large scale, that we could do a make in India during the COVID period and come out with vaccine during that period itself. Actually, at the onset of the COVID-19, India's ability to deal with the pandemic was questioned in a very big way. But what we could demonstrate that during this period, we could produce vaccines, not merely our own Make in India vaccine, but we could also do the AstraZeneca vaccine at such a large scale, to an extent where we could not merely vaccinate our own population, but the fact is that we were able to provide 300 million vaccines to over 100 countries. That demonstrates India's ability to do vaccine diplomacy, that demonstrates India's ability to think beyond India itself and look at the whole entire COVID from the perspective of Vasudev Kutumbakam and from the perspective of one earth, one family, one future, and say that if there is COVID in one part of the world, it will have an implication on other parts of the world. And therefore, it is necessary to have a global approach to vaccination. And therefore, to my mind, this was critical. I think the other aspect is that we've managed the COVID crisis in a very, very unique way. The economic handling of it, both the monetary handling of it and the fiscal handling of it, has been very unique. Unlike many other countries which gave out very large packages, if you look at Europe, if you look at America, if you look at UK, very large packages were given, which has led to inflation subsequently, and which has impacted actually other countries economically in other ways. But in India, our approach was a very targeted approach. And therefore, we ensured that while we did not give out large packages, but we ensured that everybody who was impacted could benefit. And therefore, we used the power of technology again, the direct benefit transfer, the digital public infrastructure, to push for direct benefit to over 80 crore people, 800 million people, to ensure that nobody would remain without food, nobody could remain without vaccination, and they would get benefit, and therefore money was put directly into the bank account without any leakages into the bank account of over 80 crore people. More than that, I mean, this means that almost about 33,000 crores of rupees was put into the bank account of the beneficiaries, and over 110 million women actually benefited from this. And therefore, we did not give out large scale fiscal package, which did not lead to inflation. And therefore, ours was a very nuanced, ours was a very targeted approach. Ours was an approach which has enabled India to again get back post COVID into a rapid utilization of our production facilities, and therefore revive our economy in a very big way. And I think what this demonstrates is our ability to drive capex in a number of sectors post-COVID period, and an infrastructure-led approach rather than a consumer-driven approach, because we were able to use the power of digital transfers and the power to use direct benefit transfer. And during the COVID period itself, we were constantly innovating. We were constantly modifying our approach. We were constantly, it was a very, very sophisticated approach to COVID handling, which few countries were able to do. I mean, just look at the approach which India pursued. Look at an approach of a complete close down, which China did for such a long period, all through the COVID period. And therefore, its impact of the COVID on the economy was much greater, much larger. And therefore, in managing the COVID period, I think what demonstrated India's approach was the fact that it could use the leverage technology in a very big way. And the pandemic also reaffirmed our strength in vaccine development, in manufacturing, the fact that we were able to develop Covaxin, bring it into the market, the fact that we were able to ensure that AstraZeneca partnered with Serum Institute to manufacture Covishield. All this was happening while actually developed countries were struggling to vaccinate their population. And India managed to administer about 2.2 billion doses in just about 18 months. And at our peak, as I said, that we were really ensuring that in partnership with the states, we could push this further. I think one of the key factors of this has been that we made COVID open source, and this enabled a lot of innovation to take place. We also invited many other countries to actually build their own solution on this digital public infrastructure of the COVID. And therefore, India has actually demonstrated to the world that we could partner other countries and we could work with other countries, not only to provide vaccination, to provide technology to ensure that we could push for the digital public infrastructure, and also ensure that we could work in terms of very close coordinated. So it was an effort in terms of innovation. It was an effort in terms of management of health. It was an effort into handling diplomacy. It was an effort into looking after your own citizens. It was an effort into ensuring that technology could help us to leapfrog during this period. So this book is a tremendous effort because it contains several stories and insights from the front lines of the battle against COVID-19, and right from the policy decisions to implementation on the ground. This book takes a very multi-dimensional perspective of how India managed the pandemic, bringing together medical, technological, economic, and social dimension. It also takes a very forward-looking view on how primary healthcare primary healthcare systems can be reinvented, or how global organizations such as WHO can be retooled to better manage future crises. And it actually looks at a perspective of how the world can handle a future pandemic in a better manner. And therefore, this book actually serves as a great guide to our goal to build a more resilient society, one that is prepared for a future crisis. The lessons learned in India can actually be applied across the world, especially the developing world in particular. But more than that, to my mind, it has huge learning lessons for the developed world in terms of the leadership and how Prime Minister Modi handled this crisis in a multi-dimensional way. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate my friends, Dr. Joseph Chalil, who's the Chief Medical Officer of Novo Integrated Sciences. I would like to congratulate Professor Nalapad, whom I've known from my earlier days and as a Kerala cadre officer, and who remains a great intellectual, constantly debating on several issues of geopolitics. And I would like to compliment a great friend of mine, Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor, on whose request I've written the foreword of this book, but a remarkable piece on this has been written by Mr. Hardeep Puri. I read his piece, and it's a remarkable piece. So I think it's a great book. It has great learning lessons, and I think it's a must-buy book for all those who are interested in learning about how India managed this crisis. It's a book to be bought for learning on how crisis can be managed. It's a great book on how future pandemics can also be handled. So I take this opportunity to congratulate the authors, and I take this opportunity to congratulate Mr. Nair for being such a forward-looking, progressive, and a dynamic publisher. Thank you. And to have such a distinguished list of authors to your publishing house.
Thank you. It's a teamwork, sir. It's a teamwork.
But this appears to be a very Malayali-dominated enterprise. You as the publisher, Mr. Nalapad, and Mr. Joseph Chalil, all Malayalis. The only outlier seems to be Mr. Pradeep Kapoor.
Yeah, but
I'm a
he
Haryanvi.
speaks Malayalam now.
My election
converted
council.
to
And your
Malayalam.
guest of honor is also a hardcore Malayali. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you, sir.